So, hello everybody. Sorry for the initial glitches. Simon is joining us from USA, and I'm from India. Uh, this is multi-cloud for you session, and this is in partners with ARK. Here we'll be talking more around blockchain and implementation of blockchain with IoT. And ARK is one of the well-known platform now on blockchain, which has implemented a detailed case and an ecosystem on blockchain, which is based on delegated proof of stake, DPoS. We can talk more around it, but obviously we have a detailed session on the same, pre-recorded session on the same on our YouTube channel, Multi-Cloud for You, also on our website, multicloudforyou.com. You can go through it, and the session was given by Justin Rankin, and then I have given it in detail in the later stage on how to implement, how to use ARC specifically meant for developers. So for people who are trying to build solution around blockchain was Justin, and then I have given a detailed session on how to use it, and we'll definitely come up further with more detailed session on that. This is with Simon. Simon is the IoT lead in ARC, and he is like they are building something which is most experimented and very well known and search use case, and that is going to come up in our life, that is going to hit in our life in the next 4 or 5 years or 7 years maybe in down the line, but work has already started. Is like implementing IoT devices on blockchain so that they are more secure and they can save it from a lot of different attack, which is now possible because of a client server based kind of thing is device based kind of system. So this is the dialogue given by Brendan O'Brien, chief architect and co-founder Area System. If you think that the internet changed your life, think again. The IoT is about to change it all over again. So it says everything about it. So it's all IoT, going to be everything IoT, even the chips in our body, which are going to get embedded, and then we're going to work with it. And so let's move to the next slide. So building IoT solution on blockchain. This is our session here. We'll be giving out certificate once we complete the session today. This will be around 1 hour. Obviously, we are late for another 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes. Sorry for that, but this glitches happens because we are trying to communicate from different part of the world, almost 10,000 miles away. Me and Simon are sitting. A community of industry experts that runs a monthly, weekly series on enterprise cloud and tech learning. This is all multi-cloud for you. Multi-cloud learning, niche engineering, stream implementation, and migration management. So we obviously focus a lot on cloud-based technologies, but we also focus on niche engineering technologies such as blockchain, IoT. We have a extended team. We have a dedicated team in the data science and data engineering world that do a lot of research work, and that they keep on coming with new thing headed by Bhaskar Tripathi. We have the good strong team on the data world, which is headed by uh, Dheeraj Singh from USA, and me looks after overall evangelism on the platform and the technology and the overall architecture of the platform. Alibaba Cloud Partner. We are Alibaba Cloud Partner. We have multiple cloud partnership with multiple companies, and we are coming up with more partnership. We are not a direct connect with ARC, but we are almost in direct connect and relationship with ARC in terms of trying to think out a more dedicated solution around certification platform that we have come up with. And the first example is where you get your certificate. That's a self-service portal, but obviously it's being built in the background based on blockchain. This is we are supported by a lot of different Alibaba Cloud MVP, Microsoft MVP, and more technologies directly from the industry who helps us. Data science learning, data warehouse programming, stream engineering, free certificate endorsed by real practitioner. So we are actually real practitioner. We are not just trainers or someone coming from, like, we have got extreme like great experience in the industry, and we are still working and directly with the client and industry and doing a lot of research and academia also. Uh, so Simon Downey, who will be speaking today, he is the leading IoT solution team. He's leading IoT solution team on ARC.io. He will speak a little more about him once we give the mic to him. Years of direct engagement with the tech industry. He is IoT lead at ARC ecosystem, and this is the LinkedIn profile. Anyway, this gets recorded on Twitch channel. We'll be able to see this out. Um, I am Anjani Kumar. Many of you know I have already described about myself, so I am skipping this. So I have multi decades of direct service to the IT industry. I am ex-publicist, RBS, Microsoft. I am chief evangelist here. This is our lifetime membership, which is available. You can register on multicloudforyou.com and create your account, and then if you have an issue, you can go to help and FAQ. This is shiftir.com, where you are trying to where you are currently seeing this stream, and this is telegram.im multicloud for you, which is our channel where you can chat and talk or connect with us. If you have any issue around certification or any session you need to talk about or learn about, you can come up and talk to us. This is our YouTube channel. You can scan it right away, and this is a great example of engineering where we have broken the QR code and still will be able to scan it and connect to our YouTube channel. Why are we doing this session? So as I already mentioned, so we are seasoned practitioner. We are trying to bring out the community, real community of developer, architect, technologists from around the world together, so that they are able to talk, communicate, and build better system for our client businesses, and they also upgrade themselves down the line. So they are more like they more develop themselves like a polyglot rather than just someone who is doing a single thing all out of their life, and they don't have any opportunity to explore themselves up. So this is better for community, better for the world, and we're trying to help the world and the community together. So over to Simon. So Simon, it's all yours. I'm stopping the sharing, and I will be sharing the screen with you.
Okay, let's see if I can get this to work here.
Yeah. So you just share the screen on the Hangout, and it will show up on the what do you say on WebEx, and obviously it will be there on the streams also.
Hold
So
on, I'm
don't worry.
getting a.
Just share your screen on the Hangout. There is a present now section below.
I might have to join back because to present the screen, I have to allow a
No,
permission.
no, you are
No, no.
you will be able to. You are already there on the Hangout. If you see my screen through WebEx, you will be able to see there is a present now button below.
No, yeah, I understand that.
Okay, cool then. Yeah, we are able to see. Guys, you are able to see, right? If you are not able to hear the voice, you can directly go to fifthIR.com and start keep listening here. We have already sent the links into the chat window. Just let me know if if you're not able to see the screen.
Let's see. I should be okay here.
Yeah, we are able to see.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so how's everybody doing? First, let me apologize for the technical difficulties there. Kind of a learning curve for all of us. Especially like you mentioned, we're sitting a good 10,000 miles apart. So, you know, it's pretty amazing on that. But I mean, getting right down to business on it. My name is Simon. I've been with ARK for about 3 years now. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I was formerly a member of the ARK community, and I found the project, and everybody was like great. You mentioned, we're sitting. They really cared about making something that. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Pretty amazing on that, but I mean, getting right down to business, there were a lot more concerned about making something that I've been with ARK for about 3 years now. You know, trying to make it easy for people. I was formerly kind of a learning curve for all of us. Okay.
I think
if anybody has,
I think it will be
okay.
better
Well,
now. Yeah. It would be
okay.
better
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Yeah. If anybody has a question, feel free to speak up. But basically, yeah. So they basically were about involving the community and like I said, trying to make something that's actually usable, that actually has a purpose. And the big thing that I really liked about it is how they talked about, like adoption. I know that's the big buzz phrase, adoption, but I felt like they were kind of leaning more towards that, because the difference that I noticed with ARK that really drew me to them in the first place was how easy it was to get into the development. We've got something like a dozen plus languages, tons of software wallets for Android, iOS, Mac OS, Windows, and it's just easy to jump right in. Some of you who saw the previous one with Justin will find these slides a little bit familiar. But I'm just going to kind of run through these, really quick for you guys to take a look. And then what I'll be doing today is I'll be doing a little walkthrough for you guys. Basically showing you how easy it is to use ARK technology and an ESP32 and a little over 100 lines of code, not as bad as it sounds, to interact with a blockchain. And it's really cool. And at the end, I'll show you one of the projects that we just wrapped up and just announced is finished through our Tier 0 program. Is a proof of concept for rental scooters, where basically we got these two amazing community developers to come on board with us. And they really knocked it out of the park making a scooter solution. And what they did is they basically launched their own bridge chain and created like a hardware and back-end infrastructure with management and registration interface, everything, mobile app, all open source. Sorry, hold on just a second. All open source. I mean, it can be applied to so many different things, but we'll come back to that at the end here. Let's see. Skipping through his old slides. I don't want to straight steal his presentation. And by the way, anybody who's interested, you can join us on any of these social media platforms that you see right here. And take that down in just a second here and get out of this. Okay, where are we at? Okay, now it can be kind of technical at first, but I'm going to try to break it down and show you how simple it can be working with working with our software development kits. Again, this project is going to be done with an ESP32. Specifically, my favorite's from Adafruit, and it's their Featherwing. So even just that pinout, that Featherwing pinout, any of you, if you've worked with it before, you know what I'm talking about. It just makes testing so much easier. And this is Platform IO. This is one of the platforms that we use for IoT in our C++ development kit. We also offer support for Arduino IDE. We offer support for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux for the C++ SDK. But coming back to this, VS Code, there's a little plugin, you can search it, and you get the Platform IO plugin. So before I get started, are there any questions? I've got someone saying the voice is not audible. Can they hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? More.
Hi, Simon.
Hey, oh, bad feedback there. Can everybody hear me or no?
No, people would be able to hear you on the fifthir.com, which is our streaming channel. The reason being is because you are not on WebEx and there was an issue with WebEx. So we have shared your screen to the fifthir.com.
Uh-oh, someone's getting angry here. Can you jump in and give them that link? What are any of those? Oh, there you go. Just typing out a message for the people that can't hear me. There you go. Thank you.
Yes, you continue, Simon. I will try to monitor it out. Now I have a monitoring window now.
Okay, and now if anybody has any questions before I get started,
Yeah, they can put into the
Go
chat
type it
window
in.
and
Yep.
and we'll be able to get the answer done.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, and again, guys, sorry about the technical difficulties here, but I promise I'm going to make it worth your while here. So jumping right in, you can go create a new project. Let's call this multi-cloud for you, ARK IoT. Like I said, my favorite board, ESP32 Feather. And then I'm just going to click finish. Hold on a second. Okay, perfect. Almost perfect. Hold on. Well, typically, here we go. Let's try this again. Just make a whole new window. Whoa, now. Okay. Make sure all these. Okay. Let's just be safe. Multi for you. IoT. We're gonna get really, really creative here. Did I lose anyone? It says I'm reconnecting. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, we can. I can hear you. I'm not sure if anyone has any issue. So I think there are people joining. So you continue, right? So there are people joining, and they will keep on confusing us. And this happens in the open forums. So you continue with your session. I'm monitoring if your voice goes off on the actual channel.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
don't get confused with, like, there are people join
Okay.
and they will not hear what we are saying, and then they will keep confusing everyone. Okay. So you continue.
Play it safe. Let's call it 3 ESP32 Feather. Okay. Let's see if it's going to behave for me.
I will keep on.
There we go. That's looking more like it. Okay, now you could copy the values in manually here. It just set up like a default environment for the platform, for the board, for the framework, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the project settings in here and platform IO home. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add dependencies to the project. And now up until like about a month ago, the only thing you had to add was ARK CPP client and ARK CPP crypto. Something changed and you got to add the extra dependencies in, but that's even not too bad. But that will be taken care of soon here. Let's add the client. And then we're going to add the HTTP client. We're going to add the Wi-Fi library. We're also going to add the Wi-Fi client secure. And now again, like I said, typically what would happen when you do the ARK C++ client, it would automatically pull these in. Again, something changed in the staging package for the ESP32 framework, so I got to go back in and update that. But typically, you just add that, and these will automatically be installed along with it. Next, we're going to go ahead, and we're going to add ARK C++ crypto. And same thing with C++ client, typically pulls it in, but for now we're also going to pull in the extra libraries. The first one we're adding is Arduino JSON. Next, we're going to add BCL, and that's short for IOT's Bitcoin cryptography library. This is one that I ported myself personally to our specific needs for ARK. And finally, another library that we made called BIP66, and what this does is this handles the DER serialization of elliptical curve signatures. Okay, so now that we have those dependencies added, the framework's Arduino, the board is the Feather ESP32, and we also have the platform is Espressif32. That's of course the ESP32. So we're going to click Save. Okay, so let's go and take a look and see if it updated. Yep. And let's double check. We've got. Yeah, okay, looks good. So next we're going to click over into source and open the main file. Let's get a drink of water here. Okay, now by default, they give you a basic little sketch. And this, you know, it just has the classic include Arduino header, the setup, the loop. Not to get too into it, but for those that aren't too familiar with it, setup, this is basically where you're going to put, you know, put your setup code here to run once. And that's when the board powers on, it'll run whatever instructions are in here one time. So that's going to be where you're going to do things like set up the serial connection or connect the Wi-Fi, things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do, because remember, once we go to build this and send it out to the board, it's going to include all those extra dependencies. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to cheat adding these, but I'll go through each one and let you know what it does here. Of course, we have the Arduino header that pulls in the main framework. A lot of this is pretty self-explanatory, but you know, the HTTP client, that's what uses the connection, the Wi-Fi, that's what handles the Wi-Fi connection itself. Of course, ARK client and ARK crypto. And then a few things that we're going to need for this project are the ability to hash. We're going to need, could be DevNet, but if I'm having trouble, go back. The transaction builder, and that's what that's the structure that you're going to use to create transactions, and then of course just a little hex utility. So jumping right into it, just for the sake of not having to type it all out, we're going to go ahead and add these namespaces. We're going to pull in the ARK client, ARK crypto, and ARK crypto transactions namespaces. And all that basically does, for those of you that aren't too familiar, is that makes it so that like you don't have to type the whole thing out. So it'd be, you know, transactions from blah blah blah. So it just makes it look a little bit cleaner. Now the next thing that we're going to pull in, and I'm just going to copy this just to show you an example of what it's going to be. I'm going to try to do this slick.
Simon, I would suggest one thing. Can you just increase the font size of this window, or maybe a little higher resolution, because it looks like it's very blurred, it's very small. Yes. Can you make it a little bit?
Better?
Yeah. Can you make it more bigger, a little bigger? Yes. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now, like I said, let's see. I'm gonna try to be slick about this. Let's see how slick I am or am not. These are my secrets. Okay, so normally what's gonna go in the secret file is going to look like, let me see if I can find that. Okay, yeah, it's basically going to be, it's going to define your SSID or your Wi-Fi network, and define for your password, another for your passphrase, and for the recipient ID. And this will be in a repo, and I'll provide the link, this project, where you can download it and try it yourself if you have the hardware or want to just take a look at the code closer. But typically you put, your SSID and password here. But for the sake of this, it's my secrets. I'm putting them in there. You have your own secrets. Let's see. And now the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to create the client connection. Now this is coming from ARK client. This is what's going to be our connection to the blockchain. And what I've entered here, and you can get this from the API, and there are other lower level ways to go about connecting to a node and getting all the IP addresses of all the peers of the node. But for the sake of this, I pulled up one of our developer network nodes, the IP for it, and entered it in here. And again, this is going to be the main connection. You'll see how we use that down the road here. Now, for the sake of this demo, this is going to be a lot, but this is actually very little of it. This is just some boilerplate. ARK version 2 transactions and up use an incremental nonce. And so this is just a quick little, quick and dirty method to get the nonce from the wallet. And if you don't know what a nonce is, that's basically, when you first receive a transaction you've never sent from the wallet. When you go to send a transaction, the very first nonce is going to be 1. And then your next transaction that you send out will be 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. And the purpose of that is basically one way of combating double spending that helps clean the pool up. And here you can see where you're getting the wallet response from the client that we created here, wallet API or client API wallets get, and then the address that we're passing into this function. This is just some boilerplate for Arduino JSON. And all we're doing is we're basically getting the wallet and we're looking at the nonce, which you get straight from the API. And then is there no nonce? Is it 0? If it's 0, then the nonce is going to be 1. If a nonce is there, say they've sent 1 transaction, then when it gets the wallet nonce, it's going to be 1, so we're going to increment it. So this function get wallet nonce is going to read the current nonce of the wallet, and then it's going to increment it by 1 and return that value. The next function that I'm pulling in here, and now this can be any arbitrary value. There are several different transaction types. Well, more than several, there's about a dozen. And ARK also has something called a GTI interface, and that means generic transaction interface, where you can implement your own custom transactions. And I'll show you more about that when we get to ARK scooters at the end here. What we're doing for the purpose of this is we're just going to take the chip ID, which is basically like the MAC address of the ESP32 that I'm working with. It's going to take it. and then it's going to create a SHA-256 hash of that. And we're going to take that chip ID, hash it, and store it in what's called the vendor field. Now, that's a text field that can support up to 255 characters, and that goes in a standard ARK transaction. So um, that's the chip hash here. It's just a little global for the demonstration. That'll be passed to this function, and we're going to get the chip ID. We're going to do a SHA-256 hash, and we're going to store it in chip hash right here. And now let's see. Let's jump down to the setup. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to serial begin. It's 2600. See, we're also going to and now this is the SSID that we're pulling from that secrets.h file that I snuck in there, and the password. So, we're going to throw in a while loop here, while. Okay, so so far in the setup, all we're doing, we're creating the serial connection, and now that's going to be what we'll be printing output to. So the board's going to read the serial begin to set up, and then anytime we get the serial print command, it's going to come to the console. That'll be down here. So first we start the serial connection, and then we connect the Wi-Fi. And then we're going to say, well, the Wi-Fi is not connected. We're going to wait half a second and print a dot.
So sorry to disturb you, Simon. Along with CPP, C++, what are the other languages where people can code and work on the same, like they can simulate the same uh, thing? Like, is it
Well,
possible to work on Java, C Sharp, and will you be able to do
oh
that?
yeah.
Yeah, right. So there are more than 12 languages where you can connect with, and you just have to connect the ARK API library, right?
Yeah, there's over a dozen. I'm pulling it up. SDK.
Yeah, go to the developers and then
And
there's SDK. Yeah, so there are more than 12. There are 12 languages, which is
oh yeah, so I need in IoT mostly right now just works with the C++ libraries, but general development with ARK, and our ARK core is done in TypeScript, and we also have a TypeScript crypto and client. We also have a PHP SDK, Java, Go, Python, C++, Rust, Elixir, .NET, Ruby, and
yeah.
Swift.
Yeah, we have demoed
Um,
the .NET library in the first session, so I've already demoed people at least at the beginning, showed them how to connect to and how to put the transaction and basic things, not much, but yeah. So yeah, for IoT, you will have to use the C++ library at this point of time, right? What you're
Correct.
saying?
Yes.
Okay, and that's get deployed to Arduino chip or any chip, right? So let's say if I order some chip, if I design some solution, and then I have a couple of chips, maybe to enable light or bulbs at home, or maybe washing machine, or maybe multiple device on my home at my home, and then I try to connect with the edge network, or maybe I have already a cloud-based solution which is available, and I want to put that back onto the blockchain network. so that that can be connected to different channel. That's possible, right?
Yeah, by default, right out of the box for C++ client, mainly supporting the ESP8266 and the ESP32. What the nice thing is, though, is that most of it's universal, such as like the cryptography libraries, some of the other stuff in a way that where when you need to implement another board, you really only have to implement like maybe if there's like a Wi-Fi connection or some specific kind of, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't be able to do like an Arduino Uno, for instance. That's not going to cut it because this is handling like cryptography. To be clear, like this does on the ESP32 chip itself.
Okay.
Create the transaction, sign for it, send it to the network, and search for it.
Yeah.
All in one. So it does have to be fairly beefy, but in general, yeah. The idea is that as we're building it, we're trying to build it to be more extensible. Where my goal with this is what it would be is that you just have these different modules that you'd be able to essentially drop in and have it work with a variety of different boards.
Okay.
So that's the
So
direction that we've been heading with it. So you wouldn't be able to do it right off the bat, but it is something that is doable.
okay. So you were saying that Arduino Uno or maybe Raspberry Pi also, like people will be not able to simulate this, right? So they need
Well,
ESP chips, right? That's what you wanted to say.
actually, a Raspberry Pi, especially the 4, we've had people in the community that have set up and run nodes and seed nodes with
Yeah,
them
yeah, I've seen that some
on
of
the ARC
the
network. So
there is some GitHub um, examples also there, right?
ARC promo.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, yeah. I mean, so it's as the cost of chips go down and the power goes up, it's easier and easier to do. But I mean, the Pi is basically just Linux anyways. And then of course, we have partnerships with Ledger. They're going to be releasing an IoT solution sometime in the near future. I know they've been working on it a while. There's a lot of other modules that I've personally got and other people on the team and in the community have been playing with, like these little secure modules where you'd be able to connect it to a device and have like an even extra layer of cryptographic protection on it. So, I mean, it's really exciting. The possibilities are pretty much endless with it. I mean, anybody that's looked into IoT, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So let's say I have a camera device at home. So it uses
Hmm.
ESP or something, or maybe I bought a out of the box camera device. Let's say something from Amazon, right? Like Xiaomi MI
Yeah,
camera. Like
yeah,
there are multiple things. So anyway, like we'll have to build a layer. We can also build a layer between the actual device and the layer from where we connect to the blockchain, and that also through that we are able to communicate. But obviously the communication between the layer which is there at home may be called edge network or edge device um, to our chips may not be encrypted or may have some vulnerability, but
yeah.
from edge device you will be able to, if you have developed the edge device or you set up the edge device either or the Raspberry Pi 4 you were talking about, or maybe on on ESP module, then it will be easy to use the solution directly and then connect to the main blockchain network, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, let the home devices connect to that edge network and then communicate, right? That's possible, right?
Oh yeah. Actually, I mean, I was doing that a few years ago. I set up. I used a few ESP32s and a Raspberry Pi. I set up a mesh network along with an NFC reader and a solenoid to do a proof of concept. And basically, they would send messages back and forth
Yeah.
securely, doing cryptographic operations on the way, making sure everything's secure. And then I come up with the NFC card to initiate a transaction. It goes to the Raspberry. It goes through the mesh network to the Raspberry Pi, out to the bridge chain, and then once it's forged, that information gets relayed back through and verified, and then it sends the message over the mesh to trigger the solenoid. So yeah, definitely, you can absolutely do stuff like that and more.
Okay, great. Yeah, continue. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no problem.
Just wanted to help the
Um,
users who are with us to make them know that not very interesting. It's just because of C++. Those who don't know that may get boring, but I think it's worth investing here because the world is going on IoT. Everything is on IoT. Like will go on the IoT. And the second thing is now with the advent of cloud, there are multiple things that has happened, and now there are a lot of different things that is going to come up as soon as blockchain is going to boom up again. Maybe another 3-4 years when all the devices, car, um, all the chips and the tools that we are working are
Oh,
connected and talking to each other. That's a connected world that comes up, and then a lot of security risk that comes up, and where actual this cryptography thing will come up in the picture.
oh, absolutely. I mean, if you get, if any, you guys are here, so you're already, a believer, or at least a skeptical believer in what blockchain and IoT can do. And it really is. I mean, when you think about the trends towards decentralization, towards like trustless environments, towards a gig economy, I really see a big use for this. And like I said, I hope I can show you along the way here, finishing this demo and showing you ARC scooters. We'll give you a little bit of an idea of what we're trying to get at here.
Yeah, and I
And
was talking to Simon, so that's why we're talking that this will be a series. So like obviously we have started today. There will a lot of things. There are a lot of things coming up down the line in coming months that will keep on connecting and talking to everyone who is here. So this will be a series, and then we will have multiple sessions down the line whenever Simon get time again, and then we'll reconnect and communicate. Yeah, this will
oh
be
yeah, and really, and this isn't even bad. Like this is honestly legitimate. Like this is the worst of it right here.
yeah,
This stuff getting the wallet nonce, and you can implement this any way you want or drop it in. But this is just extra stuff.
yeah,
Using
yeah.
the SDK, and I'll show you how simple it gets when it comes to creating a transaction, sending it, searching for it. Um, like using the parts that interact with the ARK blockchain take up like several lines compared to the rest of the stuff around it. Um, so it's really easy to just like drop it in and start doing all sorts of different stuff. Use it because it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be the chip ID. It can be anything. It can be a barcode. It can be a serial number. It can be, any type of asset or information that you'd like it to be. And then just the ease of use with it, and then jumping into the Radiance chain and ARC scooters that I'll show you more about here in a bit. So without further ado here, let's go ahead and we're going to create, let's see if I can spell it correct. Can you guess what this function does? So the first thing we're going to do, because like I said, we need to know if the wallet has a nonce or what the nonce is rather. So we're going to get the wallet nonce from the client, and that was this client right here. And then one of our secrets, the recipient ID. So that's just getting the nonce. And then we're going to throw in this other ID hash to buffer. And at this point, the chip hash is empty. So we're going to pass chip hash into the hash buffer, ID to hash buffer, ID hash to buffer function, and store it in chip hash. And now creating the transaction. Again, this is C++, fully compatible with the ESP32 builder.
So
And
helping
what
user
we're
to
going
yes, helping user to understand nonce. So nonce is like something which is used only once, and is like what Simon is trying to say that trying to check it like he is trying to get a wallet which has a nonce, right? Which has already one block has been mined, or it is like something which is connected, right, Simon?
right, and it's an incremental nonce.
Yeah, yeah.
So for instance, if yeah, so each transaction has to be in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. So that's the importance of getting that. And let's just send And what this ends up being, this is the value for, or in this case, since we're using DevNet, Dart. So that would be that. If I want to make one, it would be 1, and that would read as 1 or Dart. For this, just a nice, quick, simple thing, we're going to do 1 ARK Toshi. You can set an optional expiration. We don't need to set an expiration on this, so we're just going to do that. And next, we're going to add the recipient ID, and we're just, for the sake of simplicity, we're using ours, so we're sending 1 ARK Toshi to ourselves. And in the vendor field, we're going to place our chip hash. Next, we're going to sign it in line with this builder pattern. And that's going to use the passphrase that we have stored in the super top secret file. And then finally, to finish. So this adds the nonce, builds the transaction, and signs it. And just so we get a pretty little printout, I'm gonna copy paste this. So you'll see in the serial output, and we're going to return that transaction. Okay, so that's all there. Get the nonce, create the transaction, you've got the chip hash, put it in there. That's all it takes to create a transaction. So let's go ahead and add that down here in the setup, because we only want it to run once, and in fact, so it doesn't keep trying to repeat itself. Where would it go? And this just makes it, instead of looping and running over and over again, I'm just going to put it to sleep for now. Once it does this operation to create transaction. Let me.
Looks like we have lost you, Simon. Can you try speaking again?
Only apologize for that. Just to run back over the Wi-Fi, let's start with that, the setup. A lot of what I was talking about in here had to do with, you know, the amount of the extra code here. Like, this is all just extra stuff that could be an implementation done any other way. But the thing that I like is that it's really easy to use the parts that are ARK, and that doesn't really take up a whole lot of lines. Like the blink function, you can see that takes up a good 13 lines. And yeah, it actually takes up less lines between two functions to send the transaction and search for it than it does just to blink and go to sleep. So starting with here on the setup, you're going to create the serial connection. You're going to create the Wi-Fi connection. Now this again was in that secrets file, so your SSID and your password. And we're going to say, well, the Wi-Fi is not connected We're going to wait half a second and print a period. And we're going to do that over and over again until we're connected to Wi-Fi. And now at first what I was going through is typing out, showing you how I believe we did talk about the nonce a little bit. Or I know, and Johnny certainly did.
Yes, yes. Yeah, from nonce only we stopped. Yeah, continue, yeah.
Yep, so you get the wallet nonce and the create transaction, and then we're going to create the hash. Did you catch that part, what the chip ID is?
No, so we are trying to get the wallet nonce, and then we're trying to get the hash and then move on. So from there, I think, yeah.
Yep. The chip ID, and that's basically the MAC ID. It could be anything. This is going to be posted in the vendor field, which is the text field for a regular transfer transaction. And it can be anything. It can be a hash, it can be a name, it can be a message. It can be anything that you want that can fit in 255 bytes. So we're going to create the hash from the chip. It's the SHA-256 hash. We're going to create the transaction. Now this is a builder interface. We're going to build a transfer. We're going to add that nonce that we just got. And if you saw one, that's equivalent to one ARK Toshi. And then if I wanted to do one, so it'd be like having one ARK Toshi, or like in this instance, dark. We're using the DevNet. You can set an expiration. We don't need one here. The recipient ID, we're just going to send it to ourselves. So we're going to get the nonce from our wallet, and we're going to send one ARK Toshi to ourselves, or dark Toshi. We're going to put the chip hash in the vendor field, and then we're going to sign it. And that passphrase is also in the super secret file, and we're going to build it. And so then we're going to print what that new transaction is and return it. We won't use the return just yet, because it should be working on this computer. So we don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. We don't need the send transaction just yet. Okay, now let's see if this is going to cooperate. I'm back on my other computer, so. And so this is pulling in and it's downloading all those dependencies that we entered in the platform IO file. It's building everything. And it's compiling that down to a file, the ELF file that it's going to flash to the chip. And then fingers crossed, we should automatically, yep, we're connecting to Wi-Fi, we're searching, we're connected. Oh, no, not yet. Now we're writing. I got ahead of myself. Now we're flashing.
So it's so what I understand is obviously you have programmed it on Arduino and it's going to flash it on Arduino chip, right?
Right. This is an ESP32.
ESP32.
Yep.
But I can see that there's a lot of Arduino message that is coming up when you are building it. So it's.
Oh yeah, and of course something went funky, but what it goes through, it's basically showing the output during compiling, and then the process when it connects to the board and flashes everything to it.
Yeah. So do you have like a connected video where we can see what is happening on actually? Like it's just a simulated one, or you have the chip there at the home and you are trying to.
Oh no, it's
Yeah, that's great.
Do you see me on the video or no?
Yeah, we're able to see your video.
Okay.
Oh, this is the.
Yeah, this is it.
This is ESP.
Yeah, this is the development board.
Yeah.
This is in the Featherwing format. There's no headers on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we connect to that. For the send transaction, pretty straightforward and simple. We're going to create the transaction like we already did there. We're going to get the nonce. We're going to get the chip hash. We're going to put it in the vendor field, create the transaction, and sign it.
Yeah.
We're then going to take the transaction and we're going to take the JSON of it and put it in a transaction payload and broadcast that to the network.
And
that's
the
using
good
the
thing
client.
is that this is the same way you have to put the transaction when you are building a program, right? So if you are building a software, is the same process you have to follow when you are trying to put the transaction on ARK, right?
Yeah, roughly. But that's I mean, you could implement this in a lot of different ways. Like
Yeah.
I've experimented having in a mesh network one chip might create a transaction and then another few validate the transaction before being passed to basically like a gateway that broadcasts the transaction. Or you can do it all on one chip like we're doing here.
Yeah. So practically talking about, let's say, why would the chip would do transactions? It's more like if you have to switch on a bulb or switch off a bulb, you will not do transaction, right? So for most of the work that you do at the home, you will not do
Oh
transaction.
yeah.
So it's more like it's just a demo where we are trying to show that the chip can also perform transactions. So if there are two chips, they can talk and they can transact also. And is it possible that if you have to communicate on the blockchain without a transaction, is possible, right? So if you have to communicate from one chip to another chip and just have to pass a message from one chip to another chip, you're sitting miles beside on the blockchain network. So even if you don't do a transaction, don't spend uh, don't spend anything, and you try to pass a message from one chip to another, is it possible, right, with this code?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to be honest, if you're just passing a message from one chip to another, you don't need a blockchain. There's cryptography. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of other methods that handle this. Where I get excited about this stuff is when you think about how we're heading towards like a decentralized workforce, towards the gig economy. Some interesting. I think in the Netherlands they were trying out autonomous, like city maintenance. So say it could be a street light that goes out that has IoT attached to it. A service worker gets pinged that a light bulb goes out. They go, they service it, and they're paid out autonomously from the IoT device inside the light post.
Yeah.
So it's basically, to me, it's about crossing line where blockchain basically interacts with the real world. Yes. Any instance where you can think where there needs to be like a trustless environment or something provable.
Yeah. So it's more like, let's say there's a government implementation of it. So all the street light that goes on obviously has to transact, and for that then they need to be charged with, right? So that's way like that's one way to do it.
Well, yeah, and as you'll see with the ARK Scooters project at the end here, it's basically an implementation using that. And we have tutorials that we're working on that we're going to be coming out with. I have a few if anybody wants to. It's not public yet, but if anybody here wants to get a hold of me through either social media or however, I'd be happy to share the tutorials we have with you. They teach you how to set up your development environment, how to store data on the blockchain, and how to react to data on the blockchain. And then our hope is to kind of use that to launch into showing you how to do more advanced projects as you build the skill and knowledge along the way.
Okay.
Okay, now back to this. So we're going to send the transaction. What do we want to do when we send the transaction? We're going to want to search for it, right? So let's create a function. We're going to call it transaction response. And we're going to create a transaction search response, and we're going to use that client that we created. API, wallets, transactions received, recipient. Like I said, we're just sending it to ourselves. And then if anyone doesn't know what a query is, I showed there's that big wall of text of a giant JSON object. It's an IoT device, so you don't want to overload it. You don't want to have, load page one with 500 entries on it. That's going to crash the board with a lot of megabytes. So we're just going to stick with the last three transactions. And then what we're going to do, we're going to search for the last three transactions, and we're going to look for the chip hash. And if it's there, we're going to return true that it was found. Otherwise, we're going to return false that it was not. And so what we'll do, we'll create a function in the loop, because this is going to loop over and over again. If the transaction is found, we're going to print a nice little message, and we're going to blink. Then the blink function, like I pointed out, like this is, I think I said 13 lines, and this is like something like 12 lines. So it takes more to blink than it does to send the transaction and search for it. And then so once we find the transaction, we're going to blink 10 times and go to sleep.
Yeah. So it's more like, obviously there I can see there are multiple uses of it. So let's say you
Oh yeah.
yeah. So if you're trying to let's say in the automobile also. So if there is
Oh
an
yeah.
automated taxi, and then unless until you do not pay the transaction via your wallet, and the chip doesn't receive, the taxi would not start. Or in the automated taxi case also, this can be an easy option, right? If you have the address of that taxi, you have to pay that out, recharge it, and then it will, if the transaction is there, it will move on to a place where you have recharged it. Again, you will have to recharge it for the another, let's say 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer. It can automatically deduct money from your wallet. So yeah, and this is a great example. It's
Right.
just a start. So if you have different similar kind of setup, you have a build on tool which is completely based on IoT, and you just want to say that, okay, unless and until if a person who is trying to use it, he doesn't have that virtual currency in his wallet, and he is not able to transfer it to the device wallet, they will not be able to use it.
Right. Okay. So let's see now. Of course, it's probably not going to cooperate because now I'm going to show people. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to upload the work that we just did. So now we're connecting to the board, the writing.
So it's connecting to the board. Now the code is being written on the board, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And you can show your video when it blinks. That will be a great thing. Okay, says transaction was found. Yes. Yeah. Great. Cool. Clap. Yeah. This is great.
So there we go. That's what it was supposed to do on the other computer, but the USB didn't want to cooperate. And of course, we have the red blinking light here.
Yeah.
And of course, we could flash again, or just so you see if you can see this.
Yeah.
Now we're going to reset. It's going to create another transaction, and then not should be incremented. Not 55, 56. Yep. See, in that fast, it sends it to the chain. It gets confirmed. It was found that quick.
Yeah.
And we're flashing.
And people say that blockchain is slow. It's so fast, right? And
Right.
that's the beauty of ARK, because that's a DPoS platform that is a little different than what we have seen in the first page of blockchain and in the traditional world.
Right, and like I said, what I love about this is that the bulk of the stuff going on, not even because this could be anything. Like I said, this could be, a funny joke or a message to somebody. It could be anything that could be going in this vendor field.
Yeah.
But the parts to work with it, you're creating a transaction, you're just putting it in a payload, and you're broadcasting it.
Yeah.
Within seconds, it's found, confirm that it's found, and triggers the board to blink.
Yeah. So it's very fast.
I mean, really, like it's as simple as that. Oh yeah.
So everyone,
And like I said,
yeah,
when
2-3 years back when there was a blockchain bubble, right, and bust. So like people were never able to think that, and people were never able to even think about that this is going to happen in a second. A transaction is going to happen in a second, right? So this is great with the way ARK has been implemented and the way the DPoS platform has been implemented and the complete ecosystem is working. This is great. And even it's easy for anyone to work with. Even my daughter, who is just 12-year-old, was able to communicate and give session on ARK, and that is one of her topic of research here. Yeah, great. So go
No,
ahead.
yeah, that's amazing. And by the way, like, sorry for like the language, but like, holy crap, how impressive is that? You know, their kids, they're 11. One of them is, what's the youngest? One of them's like 6 or 7.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, just wow. You know what I mean? That's what gives me faith. Like this, you know, a lot of people, they get into blockchain, they want to get rich quick with it. Like I'm a nerd. I'm into this because I love it, and nothing gets me more excited than thinking about like what these kids are going to do with it. Like they're trying to create a blockchain project that fights human trafficking.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Like they're going to do amazing things with blockchain technology. Like you
yeah,
look at the first emails were sent in the 80s,
yeah,
and look where it is now. I can't wait to see what their generation is going to come out with,
yeah,
especially those kids.
yeah. Okay, any question, guys? Obviously, so yeah, so sorry for the people like we this time we have disturbed you a little. Don't worry, me and Sima will come back again with a better, stronger, and good network. Uh, but yeah, so any question you have, or I will announce the code where from where you can take the certificate. Obviously, the code is IOTV. So you will have to go on the I'm pinging you. It's again, let me share my screen. Here you will be able to see on the WebEx. It's again fifthir.com, and the code is IOTV. I as in India, O as in office, T as in Tata, B as in blockchain. IOTB is IoT, Internet of Thing, blockchain. So code is IO. Just give me a moment. IOTB. If you are able to see my screen, you will be able to find it. And the website is Simon. If you can go on the website www.fifthir.com, from where people can take the certificate. Simon is trying to browse. Uh, uh, New window www
What is it?
www. Let me ping you. www.fifthir 5thir.com, fifth-industrial-revolution.com, 5thir.com. So I pinged you. HTTPS www.5thir.com. Yes. So yeah, you just put your name, phone number, email, and then in the code, in the secret code, you put IOTV and then submit, and you get the certificates signed with Simon. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. What was
And
that?
it was for the participant. I was trying to announce them how to get the certificate. So they just
Oh,
have to go to www.fifthir.com where you went there, and then they have to put their name, blah blah blah, and then there is a secret code on the second page. So if they go on the second page, there is a secret code, and the secret code is IOTB. So you just try to, you don't need to submit, but you can try to simulate it. Put your name, phone number, blah blah blah, anything, and then email. So you'll have to put your correct email so the certificates would go. But it's just a test. So
contact me
please
this way.
accept. Yeah, and then next, and here you have to put that IOTB in the caps. IOTB. I for Internet of Thing, and B, and then next, and then once you submit, you will get the certificate. Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you for bearing with us. We'll come up better, strong next time, and we'll continue this IoT and a blockchain story. It's going to happen for a couple of months, but whenever we'll get time, I will try to take time from Simon's and see these are all transactions that he was trying to show you. Uh, we'll be uh, we'll be giving you more time on the same topic. And the people who
Yeah.
left,
And by the way,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
Simon,
if
go ahead.
anybody's still here and you earned that certificate, you can go to blog.arc.io. I think this is one of the first 2 or 3 projects that you're going to see, but this is the ARK scooters thing that I was telling you about. So you can go here, you can find out more about it there. You can go to radian.nl and see more about it. And of course, the repo where you can try it yourself.
ARK scooter is something which is great. Like ARK scooter is a great example to be used on blockchain. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah.
First 2 or 3 projects that you're going to see, but this is the ARK scooters thing that I was telling you.
Yeah.
You can go here, you can find out more about it there. You can go to radian.nl and see more about it. I think it's just me and you at this point now, right? The repo where you can try it yourself. No, that's just this one. Do we have people still?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm all done. You guys, thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thanks, Anjani, for organizing this.
We'll see you guys again soon, just like we said.
Thank you.
And thank you, Anjani. Thank you so much
reading
for
the use cases.
we made it through. But we'll only get better on the other ones. And thank you guys again for the time. Hopefully we can have a little more conversation and interaction next time.
Yeah, I think Jairus was trying to talk something. Yes. Thank you, Jairus.
Okay, yeah, I'm all done. You guys, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anjani, for organizing this.
We'll see you guys again. If that's it, then thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, sorry for the issues that happen, but yeah, we also like this is what the technologies is, right? So love it. No issues. We'll come up in a much better way in the next session. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a great night, guys.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.